Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles, and yep, I'm back with part 3 of this. Remember, I advise everybody to click the little speed thing so it goes faster, because you can listen faster than I can talk, and, why waste time if you don't have to, right? So, here we go with this one. This one breaks my heart, but, it's kind of par for the course. Keep in mind some of the things you've seen happen and, what Mueller has done to some people along the way just in this investigation. So don't be surprised, but yet be surprised, okay? Because this was our country and this was what was going on. So anyway, here we go. The witch hunt against Republican Senator Ted Stevens and his tragic death. Ted Stevens had served in the U.S. Senate since 1968 and was indicted in 2008 by the U.S. Justice Department. One would think before the U.S. government would seek to destroy a sitting U.S. senator, there would be no question whatsoever of his guilt. One would be completely wrong in thinking so when the FBI director is Robert Mueller. Roll call provides us with General Colin Powell's take on Ted Stevens, and there's the link to it. According to former Secretary of State Colin Powell, who had worked closely with the senator since his days as President Ronald Reagan's national security advisor, the senator was a trusted individual, someone whose word you could rely on. I never heard in all of those years a single dissenting voice with respect to his integrity, with respect to his forthrightness, and with respect to the fact that when you shook hands with Ted Stevens or made a deal with Ted Stevens, it was going to be a deal that benefited the nation in the long run, one that he would stick with. Such a glowing reputation certainly did not inhibit Mueller's FBI from putting Stevens in its crosshairs, pushing to get an indictment that came 100 days before his election, and engaging in third world dictator-type tactics to help an innocent man lose his election, after which he lost his life. Okay, so, this is just such a sad case here, and it sounds very similar to the one I covered in the last section about Curt Weldon and how he lost his election. So anyway, let's go on. As reported by NPR, after the conviction and all truth came rolling out of the framing and conviction of Senator Stevens, the new Attorney General, Eric Holder, had no choice. He abandoned the Stevens case in April 2009 after uncovering new and disturbing details about the prosecution. Unfortunately for Ted Stevens, his conviction came only 8 days before his election, which tipped the scales on a close election. Does this sound familiar yet? Let me take just a moment and go to Ted Stevens here. This is the Wikipedia page. If you read through the trial, conviction, and reversal, this is just so sad about this man. I mean, what was done to him. From what I'm reading and what I've seen, it sounds to me like he was totally innocent, and this was another trumped-up charge. They figured out a way to take this guy down, and that's who did it. And it was the FBI and the IRS that were behind it. So, look at this. On July 29, 2008, Stevens was indicted by a federal grand jury on 7 counts of failing to properly report gifts, which is a felony, and found guilty at trial 3 months later. Well, when I read part of it, it said that the charges he was caught on were lying, which would be perjury. So, I think, did they get him on a perjury trap? I'm not sure. But anyway, they tried to say that he was given money by this Veco Corporation, which is like an oil pipeline service, and that they gave him money so he could do $250,000 renovations to his home. And, that's just not what happened. And they kept one of the witnesses back. They kept all kinds of exculpatory evidence back. And he declared, I'm innocent, and he pleaded not guilty. I mean, he kept saying he wasn't guilty. And so he asserted his right to a speedy trial. Well, they drug their feet and everything. But look at this. Look who the U.S. District Judge in Washington, D.C. was that handled this. Emmett G. Sullivan. Do we know him? Well, he's the one that's been handling the Flynn sentencing. Yeah, and he keeps throwing things back at the prosecution and says, no, what are you guys doing? And that's why he was trying to get Flynn to change his plea, because he's sure Flynn is innocent and that he's got plenty of evidence to get him totally off on this because of how they've been handling things. Well, essentially, Emmett G. Sullivan at first denied a mistrial, but eventually, he vacated the decision at the end when it all came down to it. So while he was convicted, see right here, it says on October 27th, 2008, Stevens was found guilty of all 7 counts of making false statements. So he wasn't really found guilty on the rest of the stuff. It was on making false statements. And then the witness that they had who could have exonerated him, they sent him back to the lower 48. And yeah, he didn't get a chance to even testify, and he could have helped clear it. They kept back other documents and things. So it was dirty, dirty, dirty. And the Republicans joined in throwing the rocks at him. So I'm really disappointed that they did that. They all assumed he was guilty. But of course, at the time we had Barack Obama and John McCain, and they were quick to call for Stevens to stand down. Well, you know what? I found if those two guys are against somebody, then probably that person is a good person, right? Because we know with the Coates situation, John Brennan's sticking up for Coates and kind of trashing on Ratcliffe, so we know the truth on that. Who's the good guy? And check this out. This is kind of interesting. Late on November 1st, Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid confirmed that he would schedule a vote on Stevens' expulsion, saying that a convicted felon is not going to be able to serve in the United States Senate. Keep that in mind, folks, because I think we may be coming to a point where some convicted felons are not going to be able to serve in the Senate. I hope. Okay, and so, even Palin was jumping on the bandwagon. All these people were. But he kept saying, no, he was innocent. And then Jim DeMint said that he would move to have Stevens expelled regardless of the results of the election, whether he won or lost the election. So this was just horrible. Now, this guy, remember, until just recently when Orrin Hatch surpassed him, he was the longest serving Republican senator, ever. So anyway, what happened? Well, we had this FBI agent, Chad Joy, filed a whistleblower affidavit alleging that prosecutors and FBI agents conspired to withhold and conceal evidence that could have resulted in a verdict of not guilty. In his affidavit, Joy alleged that prosecutors intentionally sent a key witness back to Alaska. And by the way, I misspoke earlier where I said that they sent him to the lower 48. No, it was the other way around. So after the witness performed poorly during a mock cross-examination. And this guy could have exonerated him, and that they sent him back because they didn't want to have him say anything. And, this Wikipedia makes it sound like Eric Holder was the good guy in this, and that he was just so offended that this would happen that he, had to stand up for what was right. And he was offended that this prosecutorial misconduct was horrible and he was going to deal with it. And it's like, yeah, I'm sure that's what Holder was thinking. Anyway, so down here, it just went through all of this. They found out that the witness against him was perjuring himself. And it was so sad. So the man was innocent and he was railroaded. And here's even the special report. You can even look at the report here. If you go down to page 10 of the PDF, that's actually page 1 of the report. Okay, maybe 11? Or there. 12. How about 12? Go down to page 12. It gives you the executive summary, which is still kind of long, but it gives a summary of what the IG found. And so it just amazes me if you read through this. Oh, I just can't believe what they did to this man. But after what I've seen happening here, it's the same stuff. Same song, different verse. So anyway, back to this. Now you've kind of got an idea of what was going on. The allegation was that Senator Stevens had not paid full price for improvements to his Alaska cabin. As roll call reported, he had actually overpaid for the improvements by over 20%. Roll call went on to state, but relying on false records and fueled by testimony from a richly rewarded, quote, cooperating witness, government prosecutors convinced jurors to find him guilty just 8 days before the general election, which he lost by less than 2% of the vote. After a report substantiated massive improprieties by the FBI and DOJ in the investigation and prosecution of Senator Stevens, the result was ultimately a complete dismissal of the conviction. At the time, there was no direct evidence that Director Mueller was aware of the tactics of concealing exculpatory evidence that would have exonerated Stevens and the creation of evidence that convicted him in 2008. Nearly 4 years later, in 2012, the Alaska Dispatch News concluded, bottom line, Gohmer, the lead FBI investigator accused of wrongdoing by Agent Joy, is still working for the FBI and is still investigating cases, including criminal probes. Joy, the whistleblower, who was the FBI agent who disclosed the FBI's vast wrongdoing, especially of Gohmer, has left the agency. Isn't that sad? Oh, just so sad. The good ones are getting pushed out, and the bad ones stay. Director Mueller either did control or could have controlled what happened to the lead FBI agent that destroyed a well-respected U.S. senator. That U.S. senator was not only completely innocent of the manufactured case against him, he was an honest and honorable man. Under Director Mueller's overriding supervision, the wrongdoer who helped manufacture the case stayed on, and the whistleblower was punished. Obviously, the FBI director wanted his FBI agents to understand that honesty would be punished if it revealed wrongdoing within Mueller's organization. Yep, I think we're seeing that. Further, not only was evidentiary proof of Senator Stevens' innocence concealed from the senator's defense attorneys by the FBI, there was also a witness that provided compelling testimony that Stevens had done everything appropriately. That witness, however, was sent back to Alaska by FBI agents, unbeknownst to the senator's defense attorneys. This key exonerating testimony was placed out of reach for Senator Stevens' defense. Someone should have gone to jail for this illegality within the nation's top law enforcement agency. Instead, Senator Stevens lost his seat and, surprise, surprise, Mueller's FBI helped another elected Republican bite the dust. Unfortunately, I am not speaking figuratively. In August of 2010, former Senator Stevens boarded his doomed plane. Yes, he was killed in a plane accident. And let me go through this with you. On August 9, 2010, Stevens and 7 other passengers, including former NASA Administrator Sean O'Keefe, were aboard a de Havilland, Canada DHC-3 Otter plane when it crashed about 17 miles north of Dillingham, Alaska. Boy, 17 just happens to come up a lot, doesn't it? While en route to a private fishing lodge. Stevens was confirmed dead in the crash via a statement from his family. He and others were aboard a single-engine plane registered to Anchorage-based GCI Communication. As Stevens' death was confirmed, Alaskan and national political figures from all sides of the political spectrum spoke highly of the man many Alaskans knew as Uncle Ted, and all of them that were going to throw him to the wolves right before that. Senator Lisa Murkowski said of Stevens, his entire life was dedicated to public service, from his days as a pilot in World War II to his 4 decades of service in the United States Senate. He truly was the greatest of the greatest generation. Yeah, I think she was one of them, too, that was ready to toss him out on his ear because she said he was guilty. So, yeah, and Obama put a statement out and everything else. I just think what I wanted to point out to you on this was it was a plane crash. Yeah, in 2010, it was a plane crash. So, suspicious? I don't know. It just seems a little odd. You know, plane crashes, they kind of happen like that. So, just thought I'd point that out to you. But anyway, going on. But for the heinous, twisted, and corrupt investigation by the FBI and inappropriate prosecution by the DOJ, he would have still been a sitting U.S. Senator. Don't forget, one vote in the Senate was critical to Obamacare becoming law also. If Senator Stevens was still there, it would not have become law. In the following month after Senator Stevens' untimely death in September of 2010, a young DOJ lawyer, Nicholas Marsh, who had been involved in the Stevens case, committed suicide at his home as the investigation into the fraudulently created case continued. The report expressed no conclusion as to Marsh's conduct, given his untimely death. Robert Luskin, an attorney for Marsh, said, "He tried to do the right thing." If you wonder what happened to the valuable FBI agent who was an upstanding whistleblower with a conscience, you should know that in Mueller's FBI, Special Agent Joy was terribly mistreated. Orders came down from on high that he was not to participate in any criminal investigation again, which is the FBI management's way of forcing an agent out of the FBI. On the other hand, the FBI agent, who was said to have manufactured evidence against Senator Stevens while hiding evidence of his innocence, was treated wonderfully and continued to work important criminal cases for Director Mueller. If you wonder if mistreatment of an FBI agent who exposed impropriety was an anomaly in Mueller's FBI, the Alaska Dispatch noted this about another case. Former FBI agent Jane Turner was treated much like Joy, the whistleblower agent in Stevens' case, after she blew the whistle on fellow agents who had taken valuable mementos from Ground Zero following the 9/11 terrorist attacks. She took the FBI to court over her treatment and ended up winning her case against the agency after a jury trial. When you blow the whistle on the FBI, it's death by a million paper cuts, she told Alaska Dispatch. Turner said that agents who violate the FBI's omerta, those who internally challenge the agency, are undercut and isolated. They, Mueller's FBI supervisors, do everything they can to get you to quit, she said. So, that's the next part of this. Yeah, and we're only to page 21. We're not even halfway through yet. So, stick with me, folks. There's more good stuff to come. I'll have that in the next video, and I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see y'all later.